It says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit to yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. We're members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Can we pray? Let's just open up in prayer. Father, we thank you for the truth of your word, God, and your way really is easy and your burden is light. God, help us to see the truth in your word this morning, God, and help us to cast off any reservations or preconceptions that we may have about this verse, God. And help us just to open our hearts and open our ears and receive what you would have us receive this morning, God, because it is so important to you, God. Help it to be important to us. In Jesus' name, amen. So we're really going to focus on that truth laid out in verse 33 today. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands, because it really is that simple. Now, it's a little difficult to put into play sometimes because of the way that God has created us. Man and women, we're created different. We're created each in his image, but we have different characteristics. So we're coming to the table from a different perspective. And you may be saying, but I do love my wife and I do respect my husband, but because of the way we've been created and the way that we communicate, maybe they just don't feel that you love or respect them the way that you do. So we're going to lay out some practical advice for you men and women. We're going to bounce back and forth and just see, how do we show our wives love? How do we show our husbands respect in a godly way? So men, since we're called to be the leaders, we get to go first. First point is that women need to feel secure. There in 5:25 it says, love your wife as Christ loved the church. He gave himself up for us. Before we knew him, before we loved him, he loved us, and he went first. And his love isn't dependent on how we feel about him at the time. He loves us through everything. And men, I think when we're talking about security, I think we've got an innate design. God created us to want to provide for our families. We want to be the one that brings back the elk and feeds the family, and we're triumphant, and we're good with that. And I think most of us, if we were asked to, we would lay down our lives for our wives, for our families. If it came down to it, we would give up our lives to save our wife. And while that's important to her, it's not the most important form of security to your wife. And I was surprised and shocked as I was going through my preparation for this, that this is, I love you. The times that she wants to talk endlessly about us, and the relationship. This one is really confusing when she pushes you away, but then gets angry when you leave. I don't know. But what she's really driving you away because she wants you to pursue her. You just telling her with your words isn't enough. She has to feel it, and you have to show her. If she prompts you, do you love me? And you say, of course I love you. Well, then she's prompted you. And you have to say it. What are you going to say? Well, not today. You have to say it. And so she's not feeling it. That's why she pushes you away, because she wants you to come running after her and rescue her and tell her that it's forever. And she doesn't think logically about it, and reasoning won't help. It's true. At that point, she doesn't need to hear it, she just needs to feel it. So, guys, I know I'm guilty of this. If you need space, you need to reassure her of her love. 95% of those women said it would help the turmoil if we just said, I need some space, but we're okay. So guys, say those words. Take your space, because I know I need to go think about it. I don't process on the fly. I'm slow. I'm running with bad memory. So go think about it. Get your feelings and your thoughts in order, but then come right back. Don't wait a week, a day tops, but that's really important. She doesn't need space. She needs a hug. It may feel sometimes like you're hugging a porcupine, but it helps. Just go give her a hug and reassure her. She needs to talk about the relationship, and men, we need to listen without being offended. She just wants to talk with us and work through it. She's not trying to say that it's all our fault. Most important is if she's being difficult, push through it, guys. Keep it up. Because the harder she pushes you away, the more reassurance she needs from her. So pursue her, guys. Think about the time you were dating, before you were married, and you always put your best foot forward, and you were always there reassuring her how much you wanted her around and how much you wanted to stick around. So keep it up.
So how do we respect our husbands? We were talking with some friends just the other night and said that it was actually really simple, that we could just show up at the door when he arrives home from work in nothing but our apron with a hot plate of food in one hand and his favorite cold beverage in the other, and ask if he'd like to have sex now or later, or both. And it's funny because it's true. In the book For Her Eyes Only, they surveyed men asking the question, if you had to make a choice, would you rather be alone, totally alone and unloved in the world, or would you rather feel disrespected and inadequate by everyone? And 74% of men, 3 out of 4 guys, said that they would rather just be alone and unloved than to be made feel disrespected or inadequate. I don't think it's a coincidence that in the verse Jeff read in Ephesians 5:22, Paul doesn't command us to love our husbands. Of course we love our husbands, that comes naturally to us. What doesn't come as naturally to us and what they most need is our respect. I've learned over the years that I can't just say the words, I respect you, to Jeff in the same way that I'm energized by him telling me he loves me. There's actually things I need to be doing on a daily basis to show him that I respect him. So I've broken that down into a few areas. And the first one is we need to recognize the attributes that he was given as a man. He's not another girlfriend. He's not you, and he's not wired the way you are. He doesn't think the way you do. He doesn't feel the way you do. And we need to stop expecting him to, or even wanting him to. Dusty and Tammy talked last week about how Eve was created as Adam's helpmate to help complete him and round him out. And Jeff was saying men and women show different attributes. There's something at work that's keeping them away from the house a little bit more this week, and I especially feel that we need to be verbalizing to them regularly and consistently that we're proud of them, that we're proud of their abilities and their knowledge and in their field and their strengths, and thanking them consistently for the hard work that they do to provide for us. I also mentioned that they're adventurers and explorers, and the story of the man that doesn't want to stop to get directions. Why should he stop to get directions? He knows where he's going, and if he doesn't, then he's going to figure it out. And when he figures that out, he conquered something, which seems ridiculous. Like, seriously, pull into this gas station. I will run in. It'll take us 2 seconds, and we won't be late. And maybe you wouldn't be late, but you've then removed the sense of accomplishment and trusting in his knowledge that he can take care of you and he can figure it out and he can get you there. I did that one time, And I'm really glad that I did, because it created a really great memory for us that we still laugh about today. But it was 4th of July weekend, 5 o'clock Friday. We're pulling out of the driveway, and as we're backing out, Jeff's like, do you want to sit in traffic all the way up to McCall, or do you want to go on an adventure? What am I supposed to say?
It's pretty clear.
We're going on an adventure, apparently. Keep in mind, I am 8 months pregnant. Because I thought we were having a 2-hour trip, I have no food or water or toilet paper, which is important when you're 8 months pregnant. And we took about a 4-hour trip, dirt roads, from Emmett to Council. And he tells us as we get to the first, as soon as we pull on the road, there's a fork in the dirt. I'm driving. Which way do we go? The map stops there. We hit a lot of forks on the way to Council, but every time we got there, he got to make a decision. I trusted him. We went, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit scary a couple times. There's a couple times that we wondered if we weren't walking onto a horror film plot.
Jeepers Creepers house.
The Jeepers Creepers house, we passed it, and we have no cell phone service, and it was a little bit scary. But it was so fun, and we got there. We were late, but we laughed the whole way. We made a really awesome memory. And he conquered it. He figured it out. He got us there. And we're safe. We're still safe and we're good. And we still talk about that. If you're not in any immediate danger, let him be an adventurer sometimes. Don't try to control so much and make all the decisions. We need to respect that he has these strong masculine qualities and they come together to help round us out.
That's good. All right, guys, I have to follow you. The second point we need to understand is women need to feel heard and loved. Listening is the solution and the problem. And that's the paradox. We've been created differently, and we struggle to communicate effectively because God has created us differently, and we just see and communicate things differently. So guys, when she's sharing an emotional problem, it's important to understand that her feelings and her desire to be heard are so much more important than the problem itself. We've all been here. She seems to need a listening ear, so we say, "What's up?" And she tells us the problem, and we tell her how to fix it. And then she says, "You just don't care." And we're just left baffled because I fixed it.
You wouldn't fix it.
You came to me with a problem and I fixed it. But I don't see what's... Apparently, listening and caring are way more important to her than solving the problem. Because guys, we've got smart women. They know how to solve their own problems. They do it every day. And really what she wants us to hear is her feelings. 95% of women polled responded that a reasonable solution would not solve the problem. They felt it actually detracted from the sense that he was listening and being supportive. Wow. Going 100 miles an hour and I get home, maybe I've got 15 minutes before my brain completely shuts down and powers out. So let her know in advance, honey, I know you want to talk. I've got 15 minutes, 15 good minutes, and they're all yours. And after that, I'm probably going to shut down. And the screen's going to go dark. So just be aware of that. And really, it's that simple. Guys, we're called to call our wife blessed and praise her. Proverbs 31:28 and 29. Find out what makes your wife feel loved and do it. Because every woman's different. Every woman feels love in a different way. So take the steps to find out how do you feel loved? What do I do that makes you feel loved? And guys, do those things. Because we're called to love unconditionally. That's why the homework is so important. Go home, learn about each other, and put it into practice. Colossians 3:19, don't be harsh with your wife. Realize that she's sensitive and harsh words and angry looks and irritated tones of voice are really going to aggravate the situation and leave her wounded. So guys, treat her like a treasure and love on her?
So we need them to listen on a deeper level, and for us, it's what comes out of our mouth. So my second point is don't view him or treat him like an additional child, respecting our men through the way that we communicate with them. That has been hard for me since the very first day that we got married, and I still struggle with it. There are days where I feel like I have worked all day to raise responsible, godly children, reminding them that their shoes don't go on the middle of the floor, they go in the shoe closet, or their plates don't get left on the table, they go in the sink, and then Jeff comes home from work and kicks off his shoes. And when I see them there later, I think, really? Do I have 3 kids or do I have 4? And that, again, is funny because it's truth that we think that, and women, I really feel that we need to resist thinking that way about our men. We just talked about how they're leaders and conquerors, they're kings, they're intelligent men. They're not children. And we have to fight against our urge to think of them in a lesser way. We certainly should never be speaking to them like they're our children, because they're not. Proverbs 21:9 says, "It's better to live on the corner of the housetop than to share a house with a quarrelsome wife." Proverbs also mentions a couple of different times that living with a nagging wife is like dripping rain. And I don't want to be that. We as women are givers of life. And our words are heavy. And we feel really powerless sometimes with this strong man. Like, I could say whatever, and it shouldn't tear him down, but we can very easily tear down our men or build them up with the words and the tones that we use with them, and that choice is ours. I feel like there's a few areas that we need to be careful to be choosing to speak respectfully to them. In private, obviously, just in your day-to-day, are you using words or tones, or are there things that you say that make him feel disrespected? Ask him that question. Are there tones that I use, or are there certain things that I talk to you about, or that make you feel disrespected, or like I'm talking to one of the kids? And if so, make an effort to change that. Also, I think we can very easily tear down our husbands or make them feel disrespected when we talk about them disrespectfully in public, in front of other people. How quickly they are broken-spirited when we argue with them or disagree with them or put them down.
Where, you used to see in culture a man loving his wife and speaking respectfully to her, and vice versa. And now you get in sitcoms or any commercial, it's the man's just a fool, and he's to be laughed at by his friends and wife and family. And if he's not a fool, then he's a jerk. And we're losing the concept of a godly man and a godly woman. So the third point I want to close out with is guys, women need to feel that they're beautiful and they're wanted by us. Song of Solomon tells us that we're to tell our wife how captivated we are with her body. Guys, inside, you're smart and secure, and beautiful wife is really just a little girl that never grew up. I don't know if you've got a little girl running around the house like I do, but Cameron will come out in a dress, and she'll swirl around, and Daddy, aren't I beautiful? New shirt. Daddy, don't I look pretty? And of course she looks pretty. And that little girl is still living inside of your wife. And she needs to hear those words on a consistent basis. So how recently have we told our wives that we think she's hot, that we think she's beautiful? Dusty, you do a good job of that. Even if she knows in her head that she is and that you think she is, she still needs to hear the words coming out of your mouth. No matter what the situation, she's going to need to hear it, whether you've been together for 2 years or 20 years, no matter how old or how young she is, no matter how many times she hears it from somebody outside of the relationship. The most important thing is that she hears it from you. It's why she tries on 5 outfits before you go out. It's why she says, do these jeans make me look fat? When really what she's asking is, do you think I'm fat? So guys, the most important mirror in our house is us. And we can either choose to reflect back to our wives words of affirmation and love that, yes, you are beautiful, or we can say nothing and just leave them to their own devices where the culture tells them that they're not perfect, that this is what a beautiful woman looks like. And if you don't look like this, then you aren't perfect. And really, God created all of us in his image. His whole creation, he looked at it and said, it's good and it's beautiful. That woman is beautiful. And you know she's beautiful. So guys, just say it. Think of some affirming words and just say them, and say them now. When she comes out of the bathroom and she's wearing a new shirt or she's got a haircut, say it. Just say, you look really nice in that shirt. I like your haircut. You're really beautiful. And erase fine from your list of options. Fine should never be spoken in that context. Trust me. Answer a real question. Do I still rock your world? Because I hope that answer is yes. And if it's not, guys, you need to look deeper within and address that situation yourself. And guys, don't take no for an answer. She might brush it off, but really drive that point home that I love you and you're beautiful and you still rock my world. Because guys, we carry in our hands a hammer and we can use it and it can be devastating. For guys, it's really easy for us to see beauty in the world and to notice an attractive woman. And guys, if you are with your wife or even outside of, if you're alone, guard your thought life. It's natural to notice a lovely lady, but don't linger, especially if your wife's there. And don't lust. More importantly, don't lust. Guard your hearts. One of my favorite basketball players is David Robinson, and he's a devout Christian. And he would talk about how at halftime he would sit with his head looking at the court because he didn't want to look. Not easy to do some of these things on our own. Maybe we're really struggling. But it's important for us to die to ourselves each day and make Christ the center of our relationships and our lives. Colossians 3, Andy, if you can put that up, says, since then you've been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. Friends, love isn't enough. As statistics kind of vary, but as they're consistently kind of hanging around 50%, and that's for non-Christians and Christians alike. We can't do it on our own. We're called to die to ourselves and live a Christ-centered life, exercising unconditional love and respect for our spouse.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Do my last one?
Oh, I'm sorry. I got excited. I was on
I know. But I just wanted to, this one's kind of brief, but
Yeah.
he's talking about being captivated with his wife, and we need to recognize and realize that he wants to be our lover and our best friend. Are we allowing him to have that place? How I was really impacted about a year ago when on the sermon on the topic of sex and how sexual release for a man is on par with their need for food or water or breath. Because I am a sexual creature, but it is not on par with food or breath. I get shaky in the day if I don't have food, but he gets shaky in the day.
Can't believe I forgot this one.
Right? We need to realize that their desire for sex and to have that intimacy with us is God's design. They were wired that way. It's not, his desire to have relations with you is not to annoy you. It's not to annoy you, and maybe more often than you feel like you need it, but he needs it, and he wants that from you. He doesn't want to go find that somewhere else. And they're wired that they need it, and our society is bombarded with sex and images and women, and it's everywhere. They're wired that way. We have a awesome opportunity to minister to them and to serve them through sex. He wants it to be with you. He doesn't want to find it on the computer or with someone else. He wants that from you. But we have a responsibility in that way. He also wants to be your best friend. And he probably does not want to sit down at the table with a cup of coffee and stare longingly into your eyes talking about his hopes and dreams, because men are not face-to-face relational in the way that women are. Men are shoulder to shoulder. And he longs for that with you. He longs to spend time just doing things with you that don't require thinking or talking. This was hard for me early in our marriage. Jeff would ask me to come watch football with him, and we had this amazing 1970s couch that was really huge, really wide. And so we'd lay down and snuggle, and we're watching football, which was amazing for 20 minutes. And then I'm like, we aren't even talking, we're just watching football. He could be doing the same exact thing if I was sitting here with him or if I wasn't. And I start thinking maybe I should be working on dinner or go for a run or work on the laundry. And I didn't realize at the time that it did matter, that I just was there with him, that I was putting aside the busy work. By putting aside that busy work, I was showing him that he was my priority, that I liked him, that I just wanted to spend time with him. I think that's big for him. And nowadays, I'm still wired that way. At nighttime, 9 o'clock, kids are in bed, and my first desire is to just busy bee through the house and get everything put away and everything done, and I'm prepared for the next morning. And some days
to be happy, it's God just uses it as another tool to sanctify and purify us and ready it for us for eternity. And we need to ask ourselves, do I believe that God's put me in this situation and is going to refine me and ready me? And this is tough. If we're not putting Christ at the center of our relationship, we have a tendency to elevate the other person in our relationship. And that goes into an idolatrous situation where we put them above God. The goal of our marriage isn't to have a happy marriage where we're happy, but we're not pleasing God. And for the singles who think, if I could just get married, I would be happy. My question would be, do you know many married people? Because it's not always happy, and that's not the goal. We should be so satisfied in our relationship with God that we're not disenchanted with our spouse when they let us down. Our first love is God, and everything else should flow from that. So do people see Christ in the way we treat each other? Are we exercising unconditional love, unconditional respect for our spouse? We should seek to model Jesus. And if you happen to have a spouse that's not a believer, you're having a hard time, women, 1 Peter 3:1 says, wives, in the same way, submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives when they see the purity and reverence of your lives. And men, are we loving our wives the way Christ loved the church? Are we willing to go to any length to lay down our lives and make them feel love? And we're going to have trouble on it if we rely on our own power, but it's only through Christ that we can do that we can exercise unconditional love.
And can I interject
Finish
something?
that. Yeah.
We talked about culturally, he's talking about doing it in your own power. And culturally, I think that there's the perception that it's a 50-50 deal, that he gives half and I give half, and together we come together and create 100%. And I was really good at that. That if he wasn't meeting my needs or fulfilling the things that I needed, that I didn't have to do that for him either. And that's not what it is. It's 100% for each of us, that we both have a responsibility to be unconditionally, without question, giving our 100% in the way that Christ gives that to us. And culturally, that isn't the perception, because you can't do it. You're not strong enough to do that, just to give 100% when you're not getting back what you feel like you deserve or you need. But you can't do it through your power. It's through him.
And the more inward we turn, the more miserable we become, because they can't meet every need for us. There's nowhere in the Bible that says anything about inward focus. We're called to die to ourselves. And what would it be like if God decided to act the way that we act sometimes? The cross wouldn't have happened. Jesus would have been sitting in the garden and saying, it's not fair. They're not loving me. They're not respecting me. It's not fair. Why do I have to go do it first? But he didn't. He loved us, even in our sin, and he went and he died on the cross for us. A good quote, Emerson Edgar says, a husband is even called to love a disrespectful wife, and a wife is called to respect an unloving husband. There's no justification for someone to say, I will love, respect my spouse after they love and respect me. God is bigger than any issue in our marriage, bigger than our marriage itself, and he has the power to make it great, and he has the power to change. So let's